So a beautiful film, and
Thank you.
Questions about the film itself, and also a little bit about the program. Just since we have Deborah here, but how did you, first of all, how did you locate the women and identify that you wanted to make this film?
So we were making thesis films, and I was looking for a subject. I actually read an article in the New York Times about a hospice that had a department of musicians, music therapy in hospice care, and I was so fascinated by that just by this profession, that a musician every day goes to see 4 or 5 dying people, and sings with them and sings their favorite songs. So I wanted to make a film about this first, and I contacted them, their hospice care organization, and I filmed with 4 families and with 2 musicians. And then it was a whole process for me to decide, why to make a film only about this family. When I met them, it was, step by step, I came to that decision.
So you started with 4 different families?
Yeah, I filmed 4 families.
And 2 musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the course of that, got to know this family better.
Yes.
And said, this is the family that I should focus on.
It was, a lot of reasons. First of all, she was just, she's a wonderful character. And she wins. I would show their footage to people, and they would mostly relate to her. And in school, we show footage throughout the course while we're making the film to each other, to our teachers, to our classmates, and it's very important to have the reaction to the material early on. And then also, things started changing in the family. They first didn't want to talk to me about their family history, and then a lot of things shifted. We became closer, and they allowed me in, and something happened in their relationship as well, that they started going into their past, and I had to follow it, and I think I had to make a film eventually only about them.
It seemed as if, and I could be wrong about this, but it seemed as if by virtue of you going in and asking them about their past, and they were reticent at first, they did not want to do that, but almost as if you, by making the film, were encouraging them to make that visit into the past.
Oh yeah, that's so true, because Sonia, the daughter, that's how she put it. She told me several times that I became like a catalyst for her to go into that. And so she would tell me, if you didn't call me and asking when we already were close and we going into that road, if you didn't call me, I probably would be too scary and too not everything wouldn't come together for me to actually do it and talk to her and write everything.
No, that was very beautiful. The fact that she then was able to face something that she didn't want to face to begin with, and then got a lot more out of it. And I think that's a great benefit for the subjects of the film as well as for all of us to connect to that, the humanity in there. And I had a couple of questions. I mean, there was one incredibly poignant moment that I was thinking of when she goes back to the photos when it's too late and she's not remembering.
At the end.
At the end, but we'd seen before when she was remembering, so there was that thing. But Sonia was able to accept that. It wasn't so tragic because she had done some of it, and she'd made some progress. So that by the time she said we're too late, it was as if she was able to accept that, and which is a tough thing to accept when the memory's gone.
I'm not quite sure how fully she accepted that. I think that's also like the brave front, that she has, and but I'm still in touch with them, and I know a little bit what's going on. So Sonia was a little bit scared when when Regina wasn't able to recognize one of her best friends that she knew all her life. So it didn't go away fully.
No, I can imagine not. But it's still the fact that she had made some of the progress in photo albums that she hadn't looked at for years, that her mother didn't even know where they came from. But so, yes, and in the process of getting the early feedback that helped you to make the decision to focus on that family with your classmates and other people in the program?
actually we have in the second year, we have to screen the sizzle reel. We're making so-called sizzle reel when we have to figure out the story. It's like a short 5-7 minutes extended trailer.
Right.
Where, we have to clarify what is the story and what is the style of the film and all that. And I actually, till the very last night before that screening, I had two different versions of the sizzle reel. I had one with this story and one with the story with the four other characters, because it was hard for me to give that up. It was kind of my idea of the scope. So, and yeah, even this short piece was better, and the feedback about this was very, very helpful and really, helped
Great.
me. And just when we discuss it, we screen it and then we discuss it all together in like our little theater, and it really is. There's a feeling of a real screening, so you really get their emotions and what people feel, and you understand that better.
Well, that's great, and I think that the way that you connected to the material and it speaks to the issue of trust. We hear this from a lot of documentarians, that if there's the trust, then things can happen. You become a part of the family, and no longer is it artificial, something done for the camera or something held back from the camera because they're not trusting the filmmaker. So when that trust is established, that enabled Sonia to go forward and make the journey that she needed to make. And you got to tell the story and introduce us to Regina, who's just such an amazing, amazing character, and the beautiful close work on both of them, which just really brings it to life and gives it tremendous impact. So I just tremendous credit for that. This was your thesis film?
Yeah.
Well, I hope you got an A. I think you must have. Deborah, I just wanted to ask you quickly, we were talking a little bit offline about this, and was yesterday a film that came out of the program, the School of Visual Arts, about McBee, and it said story consultant, Deborah Dixon. And there's a story consultant credit here as well. So could you just talk about a little bit about being a story consultant and what that means when you see that, when you're seeing a documentary and you see story consultant? I mean, up until yesterday, I saw that credit and I was like, well, the documentarian must know what the story is. They went out to film this thing and they've cut it together, so they must know their story. But the story consultant has a role to play. So what is that about?
It's a bit like being a midwife. We all, I think, you set out to make a film, you think you know the film you're trying to make. But what I've learned over the years and what I tell my students is, when you get into the editing room, first of all, it's your second chance to direct. But you really have to figure out, what film am I making? What does my footage tell me about the film I'm making? And as for someone who's, I've been making films for a long time and worked many, many years as an editor. And, what a story consultant can do is come in when a lot of the work's been done, the scenes have been cut, there's an assembly or a rough cut, and have the kind of objectivity of not being immersed in the material every day, and be able to say, wow, I really love this, or that doesn't really work for me. That expression that some, I forget which journalist it was, murder your darlings. I mean, sometimes you hang on to scenes because you love them so much, but they're really getting in the way of the arc of the story. So I think that's what a story consultant does, is bring a certain kind of objectivity and a lot of experience with story structure.
That's very helpful, and it must be tremendously helpful to you guys.
Oh yes, it was. Yeah.
What about, there was one question I had, which was the cutouts that she made. Was that her idea? Was that Sonia's idea? To cut out the
the photos? Yeah, that was
and
totally
stand them
her
up like
idea.
that?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's very powerful imagery, both intellectually and emotionally, as well as visually, for your story to have them stood up, the two-dimensional characters, but stood up in 3 dimensions. So is she an artist? Does she think in those terms?
She owned a theater company before, some years ago. So she really has that very good understanding of what I was doing at at some points I really was lucky to realize that, because she would be sometimes like a collaborator. She would come up with an idea, and what if, you know, I'm going to do this, and she realized that, you know, it will be good for me to film it. So, but with this figures, that she wanted to do them because that was for her the way to, she wanted actually to place them in Regina's room, the place where she walks by every day, and actually she did. So Regina really likes them. She is, you know, playing with them a little bit.
And is Regina still alive?
Yeah, she turned 95 this Halloween, which is 59.
She's aged 20 years in two.
Yeah. I was there at her birthday, yeah.
Well, that's tremendous. That is tremendous. And one quick question, how did you get the footage of the Zelzat, the asylum that the father was in?
It's not the exact asylum. There's actually an interesting story about that. I just found it on the web, and I, you know, bought the rights from the random person who had that. For some reason, he's collecting their footage from European asylums. I don't know. So, but then when Sonia first saw the cut, she called me right away, and she was like, "This is exactly how it looked like." I think this is Austrian, from what I remember, but I think it also has this. Maybe they were all similar.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of them in this country look a lot alike, and I can imagine that it's like that in Europe as well. Mm-hmm. So if anyone has any questions here, we don't have that much more time, but I would love to take questions from the audience right up in the middle.
I filmed over a year and a half. It was a question how long I was filming. Year and a half, but and together with editing 2 years. I think, because I started editing while I was still filming. It was not exactly like
when did you marry the music to it?
What did you mean?
Well, when did you pick the music to go with the film? Early on.
Very early on.
It's beautifully scored.
Thank you very much. I really love working with music from the very beginning, and you know, until I find the right music, I can't start editing usually. So it's really hard for me to change. So it took a lot of time to get the music rights.
Well, you got it
for what I have chosen early on.
You got it very right, I think. Any other questions? Anyone? Well, a tremendous film, a great effort, and I give you an A+ anyway, at least. I think everybody else does too.
Thank you very much, everybody.